What is happening, everyone? Welcome back to episode 24 of Manny's Food Channel. It's your boy Mansoor, aka Manny, and for today's episode, as you can see here, it's currently winter wonderland outside, and it's around minus 15, and supposedly by tonight it's going to hit around minus 20. So for anybody that's watching this video right now who never experiences the winter, the cold, and or the snow, just know I'm feeling extremely jealous of you right now because I was not made for the cold. So for today's episode, I'm going to be making a very traditional Korean dish that is usually made on special occasions. It is called Galbi JJim, or Korean braised short ribs. Typically this dish is made with daikon radish, some carrots, some green onions, and of course the delicious, succulent, fall off the bone braised short rib, and sometimes topped with melted cheese as well. So before I freeze out here, let's get inside and we'll get straight to it. So to start off this Galbi JJim, the first thing I'm going to do is I have a pot of cold water here, and I'm going to put the meat inside the cold water. And you'll notice that the color of the beef is a little bit lighter. It's because I soaked it in cold water overnight to remove any of the excess blood and some of the impurities that are within the meat. So I'm going to bring this up to a quick simmer, and we're going to start skimming off any impurities that are in the meat, and those impurities will be just at the top. So I'll bring this up to a quick simmer, and in the meantime we're going to move on to working on our veg. I'm going to start off by preparing some thinly sliced onions. Next I'm going to grate around 10 cloves of garlic. And then next up I'm going to grate some ginger. This is just a mini version of a mirepoix that I'm making here, just to get the braised short rib going. And then once I finish this, we're going to move on to skimming the impurities from the beef. Now you can start to see the impurities float to the top. So just grab a metal spoon or a ladle and slowly scoop out any of these impurities. I will continue to do this for around 10 to 15 minutes until I removed as much impurities as I can from this water here. And once I do that, I'm going to strain it, set it aside, and we'll continue to move on to the short rib braising broth. To prepare the braising liquid, I'm going to sweat the onions in a couple tablespoons of canola oil. After the onions sweat for a couple minutes and it starts to turn golden brown, I'm going to sweat off the garlic and ginger for another couple minutes, just until they start to turn golden brown. And then we'll continue to add the rest of the ingredients. Next up, I'm going to toss in the rest of the ingredients. I'm going to start off by throwing in the kimchi. I personally like big chunks of kimchi. That way it gives a bit of texture in the braising liquid. But if you want to make it a little bit smaller, then cut them up. Next, I'm going to add the soy sauce. The mirin. If you don't have mirin, then a substitute you can use would be honey. I'm going to add in brown sugar. And then finally, a mixture of Gochugaru, which is a Korean chili powder, and black pepper. If you can't get Gochugaru, then substitute it with some cayenne pepper. That works as well. Now I'm going to give this a quick mix and bring this up to a light simmer. Then we're going to add in our stock, followed by the short ribs. Now that the Galbi JJim is starting to come to a simmer, I'm gonna let it simmer for at least an hour or until the meat starts to become really tender. In the meantime, we're gonna work on the rest of the vegetables that we're gonna add once the meat is tender. But as of right now, I'm not gonna season this broth because it's gonna reduce, and I don't want it to become too overly seasoned once the meat is cooked. So I'm not gonna season it right now. We're gonna season it later on, but in the meantime, we're gonna continue to work on the veg. This recipe here is very versatile. You can really add any kind of vegetable you like, such as bok choy, spinach. But for today's recipe, I'm going to be using carrots, some daikon radish, a little bit of green onions, as well as some chestnuts to add a little bit of umami and nutty flavor, as well as some texture into the braised short ribs. So I'm just going to finish to quickly slice up these carrots. Then I'm going to slice up the daikon radish as well.
Leave your dream.
Now I'm going to quickly slice off some green onions. Unfortunately, my grocery store didn't have fresh chestnuts, so I had to use canned. But if you can get your hands on some fresh chestnuts, then quickly roast them up until they're cooked, and then you can toss them into the braised short ribs. They taste a lot better. But for now, I'm just going to slice these in half. Then we're going to have a look at how the Galbi JJim is doing. If the beef is tenderized, then we're going to toss in all of our veg and continue to let it simmer. So I let this simmer for around close to 2 hours instead of 1 hour because the size of my short ribs were pretty big. And typically, if you don't like it that big, then you can just ask your butcher to cut them. But we're going to check to see how tender it is. And I don't even have to touch the meat to know that the meat is cooked and ready to go. Just fall off the bone. The meat is nice and tender, as you can see here. Just pulling it off lightly, and it's just falling off my tongs here. So now I'm going to toss in the rest of the veg. And I want to reduce this braising liquid by around 1/4. So I'm going to leave it uncovered. Toss in all the veg. And then let it cook, reduce, and then we can start plating. With the rise in popularity in Korean food, it's definitely in contention to be one of the best amongst other cuisines in my opinion. And if you haven't tried Korean food before, I would definitely suggest to go out to your local Korean restaurant and just have a try and see what Korean food's all about. If you don't know what to order, just ask your waiter or waitress and I'm sure they can recommend a dish for you to try for your first time. But as I'm standing here, my mouth is salivating and I really want to dig into this dish, so I'm going to stop talking and see how it is. Cheers. The short rib is fall off the bone, tender, melt in your mouth delicious, and the secret ingredient that really brings this all together is the kimchi. So definitely have a go, let me know how it is, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and I look forward to seeing everyone next time.